Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. My name is Jim Schubert and I am your headmaster. I hope you're ready to grow big or go home. Hey, if you have had trouble getting your foot in the door with prospects and you're trying to figure out how to get their attention and endear them to you, I've put together a free cheat sheet of ideas that you can use to provide value to those prospects before you ask them for anything, which is the way to get them to want to do business with you. And if you go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/sales, you can download that cheat sheet for free. So go to agentsgrowthacademy.com/sales and you'll find a bunch of ideas from people who are way smarter than me in the industry who are already doing this with great success. agentsgrowthacademy.com/sales. Folks, I am pumped today because if you are an agency owner and you are interested in making acquisitions, this is the episode for you. I have a fantastic guest, Mike Mensch, who is going to tell you some war stories from the M&A battlefield. Mike is the CEO and founding partner of Agency Brokerage Consultants, a top M&A advisor to the insurance brokerage industry. He's a certified business intermediary and a certified merger and acquisition master intermediary. He studied chemical engineering in college and graduated with a Bachelor of Science from Florida Tech and a Master of Science degree from Virginia Tech, continuing through becoming a PhD candidate, which means he's wicked smart and he totally decided to change industries, which is to our benefit. He also holds a real estate broker license and property and casualty and life and health agent license in Florida because he doesn't have enough things to do. Mike's been involved in more than 220 M&A transactions and over 1,250 valuations for insurance agencies around the country, making him one of the most experienced deal makers in the industry. For more than 5 years, he's been one of the top producers within the International Business Brokers Association. In 2017, he was named to the prestigious National Association of Certified Valuators and Analysts, 40 under 40 list, of brightest emerging leaders in the business valuation profession. In 2020, Mike was awarded the CBI of the Year award by the IBBA and led his team to win Top Firm from the M&A Source and rank in the top 3 sell-side advisors in the insurance industry, according to S&P Global. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, it is Mike Mensch. Mike, what's going on, man?
Jim, thanks for having me on.
Mr. PhD candidate, you went even further than I went. I asked my dad if I could get a PhD after I got a master's. He was like, I think you should get some real life experience first.
Go get a job.
Yeah. Tell me about the tell me about the science gig before. How the heck did you get into this?
Yeah, the short answer is 2 parents. One of them, my dad was a physicist, and then my mom had spent a career in real estate banking and eventually business brokerage. So I started down the path following my dad into science and engineering, and then pivoted and followed my mom when I realized that's not where I wanted to be.
Nice. I mean, it's crazy to me to see it, like where people start out and how they get in. You were like in the vortex of being sucked into science, and then you landed squarely on the M&A side.
Pulled the ripcord.
That's right, man. Good for you. Well, I'm excited. This is an episode that I think a lot of agency owners who are trying to figure out how to grow, and they see the opportunity out there. Like, yeah, they could focus all their efforts on organic growth, sure, but there's also the opportunity to acquire an agency. And right now, there's a ton of gray hair in the industry. There's a lot of people who don't have a plan to exit. Maybe they don't have kids that they're gonna hand the agency off to. So there's what would seem to me to be a lot of low hanging fruit for people who are looking to get into the acquisition game. Did I characterize that accurately?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of transactions happening that supports, the baby boomers are retiring. There's a lot. When I had a client, that reminds me, years ago, I had a client who had a couple kids, and he said, well, none of them want to go into insurance. One of them is a pharmacist. The other one is a programmer. So basically, one makes drugs and the other plays video games all day. It's much more interesting than insurance.
That's awesome. At least it didn't say takes drugs. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's ripe for the picking right now, and for us in our agency, we grew mostly through acquisition through the first half of our life. So very familiar with that side. My father learned how to make acquisitions on back in his brokerage days. He was with Caroon and Black. And they got bought out by Willis, and they taught him how to do acquisitions. And the short version is he said, I think I can do this on my own. And he did it very well here in the Metro Atlanta area. And we even, we were talking before the show, like we even dipped our toe into Florida. We had a common connection there from a dear friend who's since passed away, Kendall McEachern. But, and just to tell a quick story before we dig into it, I'm stealing your time. Sorry. But this is a great example for those that are thinking about, for acquisitions, play the long game. From the moment that we met Kendall, when we bought an agency down in Florida, he said, hey, come have breakfast with me. And we knew he was wanting us to like sell the agency. We're like, no, we just bought it. And 10 years went by until finally we realized it was the right time to sell it. And he was the first person we called. And so I think you do have to think about, it can take time, but put the feelers out there.
It's like insurance, right? You got to plant the seeds and then water it and it'll grow over time. Insurance business doesn't grow fast either, but
yeah,
same thing with those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mike, let's dig into it, man. I want to give you some time to give our audience some pointers, folks that are, looking to ramp up acquisitions. What kind of tips and tricks and pointers and things to avoid can you give them?
Yeah. So when we talked about what kind of topic, I figured there's probably more people looking to acquire than looking to exit. So this is probably a good topic for us to discuss. But so as you said, I've been involved in over 200 deals. We've worked with a lot of different buyers and doing roll-ups, acquisitions. We're involved on the sell side on a number of deals. We're involved in bank valuations for probably another 50 to 100 deals happening every year going through bank financing. And then we're involved in probably another 20, 30 deals helping buyers with diligence. So, we see at least 100 deals a year, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of stuff going on. And as everybody knows, this is a super acquisitive market right now. Yes, there's the wave of baby boomers, which is also feeding into the private equity money with the low interest rates and everything. So it's been very active time. And it makes it difficult for the average agent to go out there and find some deals, which should be on everybody's growth strategies. Can you do an acquisition, here and there, as it worked for you guys? Yeah. Yep. So I think we should go through some general tips, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody would like to do it. So
absolutely.
As I said, I've got some blogs that I wrote over time just talking about general tips, right? And the biggest thing we see is if somebody hasn't made an acquisition, they kind of let their emotions do a little more of the decision process than they should. So first rule is always take the emotions out of it and make a logical decision when you're looking at an acquisition. So if you know the person, you may be more comfortable with them than you should be. If you don't know them, you may be more guarded than you should be. So the emotions could be up and down.
Yeah.
So that's always rule number one. Try to focus on the terms of the deal and take the emotion out of it. And as we were talking too, a big part of it is building a pro forma. When you're making it, you need to understand what the income's going to be, what the expenses from the operation are going to be. Yeah. And so you got to take the time to dig in and line by line on the seller's P&L, make sure you understand all the elements that are in there. And, is that commission income or is it bonus income? Is it rental income? Something like that.
Yeah. I think my dad carried around I think he literally carried around with him like a 15-page pro forma that he would just have ready at any moment. And it was very, very detailed. What's that?
He was a deal man for sure.
Oh, he was a deal man. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, he was always looking for him. But it is important, and as he taught me how to do it, um, yeah, that there's some things in there that are kind of gotchas. It's like, oh, this number doesn't match up with what you said over here. Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in the seller's best interest to tell you everything, right? So
Right.
you have to ask the question. So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
they're only going to answer the questions you ask them. So you might want to ask them questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the other advice, everybody's got transaction advisors in a deal. You've got probably an attorney, an accountant, probably a lender involved, maybe a broker sometimes. And as the buyer, you need to understand that everybody serves their own role. They see things differently, right? The attorney's looking out for you, the lender's looking out for the bank, and your job being the buyer is to play quarterback. Everybody follows the plays you tell them to. You're making the calls, but they're working under you. You don't want to follow the direction of the lender who says, "All right, we got the seller's tax returns, we're good." We got your bank account, seller's tax returns, we're good, because the
Yeah.
bank only needs to check the box, and we looked at the tax returns, the cash flow is fine. As the buyer, you got to ask a lot more questions than that.
Sure.
Your accountant at the same time, they're not going to know the management systems and all the nuances of agencies that you'll know. So that's always one of the main rules, is make sure you're taking the lead and not following one of your advisors leading you in the transaction.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you've done deals, I mean, do you have outside people you work with?
Um, there have been a couple in the past where we've had. You mean like a broker working with us?
I mean, I'm sure you work with an attorney. Do you work with your accountant, or how involved who's
Oh,
handling diligence and all that?
yeah, when my dad was still in the agency, he did a lot of him himself. He loved to dig into the numbers,
Mhm.
but we would have an outside accountant review everything. I was actually going to ask you, um, you know, at what point in the game should we be getting NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, signed? But like, is that like the first thing before you start talking about anything?
It should be. I mean, that's in the seller's best interest, right?
Yeah,
As the buyer, really
yeah. It doesn't
doesn't
matter
hurt
so much
you
for
if
the
there's a
buyer.
breach.
Yeah.
But out of courtesy, the buyer should present the seller with an NDA kind of out of the gate before they share anything.
That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. Is it like, to sort of give them, peace of
Comfort.
mind? Is it
Yeah.
in our best interest to like immediately, hey, I got an NDA if you want to, sign it, if we're gonna talk with them directly?
Yeah, I mean, all the large buying groups, that's how they handle it. They automatically give them an NDA just because that's
Yeah,
out of courtesy for the other party.
sure, sure. You mentioned private equity. Right now it is like, if we want to try to go buy an agency, we are competing with a lot of money out there. How can somebody who's getting into acquisitions avoid, it's like, on our side, we would want to avoid paying, like overpaying, obviously.
Right.
So how do we do that, and how do we compete against the private equity money that's out there right now?
It's tough because it's a different debt. So you go borrow money, you're paying back principal and interest over 5 to 10 years probably. Private equities do mostly interest only debt, rolling it forward and recapping. So they can leverage up a lot higher. If you go to the bank, you're going to be capped at like 6 times EBITDA debt. If they go do their stuff, they're at 8, 9 times EBITDA,
Yeah.
which makes it difficult. Um, but the easy thing is that they're not going after the smaller agencies.
Mm-hmm.
The time and cost of a transaction is about the same.
Yeah.
So they're generally focused on million plus revenue opportunities.
Yeah.
Especially as they get bigger, they become less interested in smaller acquisitions. We've noticed that with buyers we've worked with. When they started off, they'll look at anything, and then they hit 200 million of revenue and they start turning their nose at deals. So
Yeah.
uh, the ones under 500,000 are probably a good sweet spot for 500,000 of commission revenue.
Yeah.
Probably a good sweet spot.
That's
That's
what
when
I was
people.
thinking that would be. And then what kind of multiples are you seeing right now in the 500,000 and under?
Uh, it depends. Our deal. So our okay. I'm just gonna say our deals. The multiples are higher than the deals we look at outside of us, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what we're doing our job, right? So,
Sure.
uh, the lender deals probably like 2.25 times revenue, something like that. I mean, if we do the valuation for the bank, it means the buyer and seller came together, and the buyer is going to get their own money.
Yeah,
Um, but the market's probably like somewhere around 2.5 times for an agency that size.
yeah.
If we put it out to bid, we'll probably push it to 3, but that's our job.
Sure, sure. You mentioned management systems a minute ago. Is that a huge consideration for an agency who is buying another agency? And I mean, I kind of know my answer, but I'd love to hear
Yeah,
from your
I'm sure
experience.
you've done enough deals. I'm sure you got a strong opinion.
Yeah,
Uh, for sure. And, it's also a big consideration for is the seller sometimes, like if they're staying on,
yeah,
if they want to keep working, they don't want to switch management systems too. But yeah, absolutely for the buyer too. It's if you got to transition management systems, you're not in the good graces of the new employees. You're
yeah,
making them do a lot of work. So,
yeah.
but it
And
happens all the time.
yeah, sure. And I guess how do you the people aspect is a big part of it. I know for us, the acquisitions that we've done over the years, that's when it's really started to get hairy because you can find yourself realizing that yes, this could be a good deal if we didn't have this person here and that person there, and you almost start playing chess with, it sounds
Yeah.
bad, like like you're playing with a toy. These are people and they have lives of their own, right? But from an acquisition standpoint, there are those considerations. What have you seen in terms of like people who want to acquire an agency and they realize, there's some people that don't need to be here. How do they address that? Or do they
I mean,
address that?
the larger buyers, they don't want to come in and be the bad guy, right? Even if they're letting one employee go and keeping the rest, it just
Yeah.
sets a bad stage. So, and I say that because we've had plenty of agencies that say, well, the buyer could come in and fix these things. We got too many staff or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
nobody wants to be the bad guy to come in and make those changes. So can it be done where you let somebody go? Yeah, but it doesn't really. Nobody likes to do that.
Mm-hmm.
No, the buyers don't want to come in and be the bad guy, because even if they kept the other three are now thinking, hey, they're going to get rid of me if it doesn't work.
Sure.
So it just doesn't set the tone very good.
Yeah. Do most of the buyers that you work with basically tell, or do you advise? Let me ask it this way: do you typically advise the buyers to encourage the sellers not to say anything to their staff, or is that just a given? Or is it all over the board? Because some people are a little bit more transparent with their staff of like, hey, just want to let you know what's going on. Like I remember Ted and Arlene
Yeah,
Tavares, who introduced us when
yeah,
y'all helped them sell their company. They were pretty transparent with their staff about it, and that struck me as like, wow, I don't know that would have been something that would have been on my mind. I just would have presumed
yeah.
that we wouldn't say anything.
They had a unique relationship with their pretty much all their staff.
Yeah.
Uh, and I told the story on when we talked with them too, of around the same time we were working on their transaction was um, one of our clients, it leaked out to the staff that he was in the process of selling, and next thing we knew, two of them quit.
Mm.
A bunch of them were asking for raises, and
Yeah.
it was like 2 weeks of hell to try and close the deal around all these employee issues. So 3 weeks of hell. So the answer I said before was every situation is different, depends on the relationship
Yeah.
the owner has with their staff, and there's always one or two people that are in the know. You
Yeah.
could have a bookkeeper or somebody like that, but There's no definite answer. I mean, it's always best if you wait longer, you know, through the process. Just
Sure.
even if you have a good relationship with them, all you're going to do is cause stress on them if they
Yeah.
find out. It's change, and change is always stressful.
Yeah. That's true. I remember the day that we announced to the Florida staff that we were going to be selling the agency. One person got pretty emotional, and when I went back to talk to her later about it, she said, she said, I'm sorry that I got so emotional about it. I know that you need to do what you need to do. And I get that it's, maybe harder to manage this office from Atlanta, and we're down here in the Panhandle. But I honestly was feeling like maybe you guys didn't really like us or love us anymore. And I was like, wow, there is always still that. I mean, honestly, there's always still that human element that
Yeah,
people take it to heart, and like it's a personal reflection on them. I was like, no, 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 no. We love you. We love y'all. We don't want to see you go, but we
yeah,
know that this is going to be better for y'all, and it's going to be better for us. And
right.
eventually, she actually still keeps in touch with me. She still calls me boss man. She'll reach out to me on LinkedIn and wish me happy birthday or something. But
That's
it's
nice.
cool. Well, can we talk about what is common among most of the transactions that you're doing? And by that, I mean, what's the process? So if I came to you and said, Mike, I'm looking for maybe $500,000 agency, somewhere here in Metro Atlanta, or maybe like in the what we would call the Civil War South, right? Like anywhere in that area. What's the process from there?
Yeah, it's hard for us to for when people come to us and say, "Find me something in a certain region." We
Okay.
just can't. Like, we work nationwide. We've got seller clients pop up in every state, so it's hard for us to do it that way. Like even people want us to call on all the agencies in Atlanta for us and see if you can find something. Can't do that.
Shake the
We'll go out
bushes.
of business trying. Yeah, we'll go out of business trying to do that.
Yeah.
It's you know it's hard. It's if you're especially the type. Here's something we should talk about. Should you focus on a certain geographic market, or like you did, expand out?
Yeah.
It's tough to find acquisitions in a tight market if it's a small market. I mean, Atlanta's bigger, granted,
Sure.
um, but there's also, like you found, challenges of managing from afar too.
Hmm.
So you obviously, came to the conclusion that it wasn't in everybody's best interest for you to be so removed from that location. But that's what a lot of the buyers do, is because they can't find enough acquisitions in one area, they start buying in other states or other regions,
Okay.
and yeah, and that can be trouble. Like you guys obviously came to the conclusion that it was tough to manage it.
Yeah. So if I came to you and said, Mike, find me something east of the Mississippi. What? But
I'd say
how do?
get on our email list.
Yeah, yeah. I guess really what I'm getting at is, what is the process when somebody comes to you and says, I would like to find an agency to buy?
Yeah, it's it's this is a tough one because we're a sell side
Yeah.
advisor, right?
Yeah.
We did 35 transactions for sellers last year across 20 something states. So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to take a call where someone says, "I'm looking at Atlanta, or I'm looking in this area. What do you got?" Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't really work that easy for us. There's not, we don't keep an inventory.
Yeah.
So what we tell them is sign up on our newsletter. You'll see we're going to put out 3 agencies a month, where you can see a little bit about it and decide if it's something you're interested in.
Sure.
I don't,
Yeah.
that's not the answer you're probably looking for, but that's, from our side, it's not easy for us to go and hunt for everybody that's looking because there's so many people interested.
No, that's okay. When I think back to the interview that you did with Ted and Arlene, um, I guess walk us through the process of, you know, because I think this is relevant for people who want to buy an agency to see how it works on the other side. Walk us through the process of how do you find interested parties to buy that. So I guess another way of asking that is, what should somebody who's looking to buy an agency be aware
Positioning.
of? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
how do they
Yeah.
position themselves? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll rephrase. Yeah. So if you're okay with me answering it as how should somebody position? Yeah.
Yes.
That's,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so our job, if we're working for the seller, is to screen the buyers, right? To make sure, one, they're qualified, may mean they have the right appointments already, because the fewer hurdles we have in the transaction, which could include getting a carrier approved and all that stuff, the
Yeah.
smoother it's going to go. Do they have money? Do they have money? If they're going to go borrow the money, who's the bank they're dealing with?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of, have they gone through an acquisition before? Because then they'll be more familiar with the process and less gun shy.
Yeah.
So, that's our job on our side, is to try to, figure out what the likelihood this person's going to get the deal across the finish line.
Yep.
So if you're a buyer, and you're out there looking, you should have a good relationship with a lender that knows the insurance agency acquisitions, right? You
Mm-hmm.
should have some money stashed up. I'd say if you're trying to buy a $1 million acquisition, you probably need $200,000 available. You may not need it all, but 20% of the purchase price should be liquid.
Okay.
And study up on the process, because it's a very competitive market, right? So the people that do acquisitions are the ones that jump on opportunities. They don't ask they know a pointed list of questions to get an offer on the table, right?
Yeah.
So what we see with people that are new to the process, we disclose them, we get them information. They come back with a laundry list of questions, which delays it. Whereas people more experienced put an offer in the next day.
Yeah.
So you got to get yourself educated up where you know what information you need to move to the next step, and then what that next step looks like.
Sure. Yeah. No, that
And,
makes.
and, and I've got a lot of articles on our website too that kind of walk through all the process from a buyer's point of view.
Yeah. No, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. I wrote down 20% of the purchase price should be liquid.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to know. And
That's
I
not a
would,
necessity. If you have an agency, you've got collateral. The bank won't necessarily require it, but you may need it. So if you want to make sure you can get the deal done, that's probably a safe bet.
sure. And then once you start the process with, a buyer and a seller, what's the time frame for getting that done? Typically, I know it's going to be across the board, but generally speaking, how long does it take to get a deal done?
So this is the difference between a controlled process versus if you're calling on agency owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our control process, we go to market, we close probably in 3-4 months.
Mm-hmm.
If you call on an agency owner, it'll take you that long to get financials from them.
Yeah.
Maybe. So that is a struggle when you try to deal directly with, you guys are all business owners. Everybody's busy unless they're really motivated to get something to happen. They're not going to take the time to put all the information together so you can evaluate the opportunity. That's always a struggle.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. But the short answer is like 3-4 months is how quickly we get them done.
Yeah. Any true war stories you want to share before we get into the rapid fire round? Anything that would teach folks who are on the buying side a lesson or something that, yeah?
Yeah, I'll give you some quick ones, right? So going back to my comment about, not letting the advisors, including the lender, drive the deal. I met with an agent some years ago who made an acquisition. All he got was, I think, one P&L, and his bank got the tax returns directly from the seller. I think he got a P&L, and I think that was pretty much it for the deal. He had no idea what he had really bought, and he didn't realize like a third of the book was commercial lines, and it was run through brokers and everything.
Oh.
And long story short, like he didn't do his due diligence because the bank gave him a thumbs up. He said, "Okay, good, let's close it," and he just didn't even really know what he bought, and he was really sweating it.
Yeah.
So that's driving point to that point that I made before.
Sounds like an HGTV show where they buy a house sight unseen and have no idea what they bought until they go in to renovate it.
Yeah. And then we had another. I mean, I had a 7-figure deal closed where the buyers, person running the deal for them said, we're not in a rush to go down there and meet the staff. We'll wait 30 days. I think they waited 30 days or 45 days to even go down and talk to the staff. And they just took their time to do everything, move the codes over and everything. They lost about 20% of revenue in the first year, which was $1 million.
They didn't see the staff for the first month or so?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, anybody.
You've got to have boots on the ground.
Yeah.
As you know, you got to get in there right away, calm everybody's nerves, make them understand everything's going to be better.
Yeah.
The boots on the ground strategy, though.
Yeah, it's got to be the first day. It's got to be immediate, and you have to have it planned out too. I mean, I remember us, when we went down to Florida, like we took the 6-hour drive to talk about what it was going to look like when we sat the staff down to talk about it. And we went over and over until we kind of nailed it down. But
yeah, you have to have that script. You got to be ready for that.
And that was us from the seller side, but obviously on the buyer side, like, you absolutely got to get in there and get to know your new people, right? Yeah. I mean, this has always been, and it always will be, a relationship game.
Yeah.
On the, selling of insurance to the acquisition of an agency. You got to be in there with your people. Got to be in there with them. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. You ready for the rapid fire round?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Get ready, man. It's not that hard. It won't hurt. One piece of technology or software that you can't live without.
My phone.
Is there a particular?
I'm not high tech, but my phone for sure.
Yeah. Are there any apps that are just like go to every day, all day?
And not really. I'm not high tech. I got a phone. I got a laptop with email.
Nice. What about a book that you're either reading now or that you just want to share with folks?
I'm reading how Salesforce scaled to 100 million in sales.
Wow.
I like a lot of business stories like that. It's a good book. It talks about how they built their marketing and how they did their advertising campaign. They were the first SaaS company, software as a service, and it tells the whole story. So
awesome.
It's good.
What's the name of that?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Still got to re-look it up. No worries. We'll find it afterwards. We'll post it in the show notes.
Yeah. Sounds good.
No worries. Do you ever listen to anything on Audible?
All the time.
All the time? Like when Yeah. That's how I actually like preview books before I decide that I'm going to actually, if it's good enough there and I really want to go further, I'll buy it and then I'll read it, which I love. For folks who've been listening to the show, that they know that they can go to audibletrial.com/grow big, and they'll actually get a free book. I think it's like a free month worth of the subscription.
Yeah, nice.
Which is cool if you want to test drive it. But audibletrial.com/grow big. I listen to Audible. I probably listened to about 3 books last month, and then I read 2 books, I think, is the most I've ever read before or consumed.
That's the English teacher inside you.
I guess so, man. I guess so. Yeah.
My wife is an English teacher. She read over 100 books last year.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, she reads a lot.
Holy, is she a speed reader?
No.
Did she ever talk to you? Does she have time to talk to you?
She homeschools our 3 kids. Yeah. She's good at managing her time.
Wow, man. That's kudos to her. Jeez. How about one final piece of advice or actionable step that our audience should take if they're considering making an acquisition?
The danger is in not knowing what you don't know, right? So seek the right guidance and counsel.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people want to get that wise counsel, how do they find you?
Our site, agencybrokerage.net, and then they call our office 321-255-1309.
Awesome.
But if they just go to our website, they can find us.
Awesome.
We're easy to track down.
Yes, you are. Um, I forgot to ask you actually. One final question on the rapid fire round. If you had the choice, now I know you live in Florida and it's a little warmer there, but it gets cold enough. If you had the choice between eating a hot bowl of soup or having some hot chocolate with gourmet marshmallows, what would you choose?
The soup. I'm not
The
a
soup.
sweet guy.
Yeah. What kind of soup?
I'm probably old-fashioned chicken noodle.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, I'm going to make that happen for you. I'm going to send you a package from a company called Spoonful of Comfort with some fantastic chicken noodle soup and a couple of goodies in there. We gave it as a gift to our staff last year and they loved it. It was like they raved about it for weeks and weeks. So
I appreciate
Spoonful
it.
of Comfort, it's coming your way. I'll get your address off air,
Awesome.
but we'll send you some chicken noodle soup, man.
I appreciate
Mike,
it.
it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today, bud. I appreciate you
Thank-
sharing all this knowledge with everybody and helping them make better informed decisions about, should I even get into the acquisitions? What are the things I need to be thinking about? This was good. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Folks, until next time, grow big or go home.